to improve the look of this section. Um, I want to add some space, and I'd like to clear my float properly, and uh, I have a few more touch-ups that I might want to make here. So going back to my CSS code, uh, I'm going to add some space to the right of my hero text container, and we do that with the padding right property. And I'm going to set that property to 25 pixels. And that should provide some space on the page. Let's see what it does there. It did provide some space, and you can see that that has knocked the image down to the next line, which is an undesired effect. So to repair that, I'm going to go back into my CSS, and I'm going to use a different model for calculating the width of a container, not just for this area, but for the entire page. So I'm going to select everything, which is represented by the asterisk character. And I'm also going to select, using a comma to denote two selectors, everything and after, which is a pseudo element that appears after everything. But might not make sense right now, and that's okay. I'll open those brackets, and I'm going to tell it to use box sizing border box as the proper mathematical model to calculate the width of a container. And when I save that and go back and refresh the page in the browser, the image comes back up to where it's supposed to be and the padding is working properly. And this is because that padding has now been added to the width of the box that contains this text, and that calculates the width properly. I have another addition that I need to make, which is going to affect content that I'm going to add in a moment, and this is called clearing my floats. I have used the float property to put these two columns next to each other, and when I've done that, I have, behind the scenes, removed them from the flow of the page, and this will cause things that I add afterward to behave differently than I might expect. So I'm going to use a method to nullify that, and it's called float clearing. I'm going to use the standard method, which is to select the containing element. This is the element that the floated elements are inside of. So on the containing element, I'm going to use the after selector again, and I'm going to write some rules that select the imaginary area directly after the hero element. It's a little bit complex to comprehend because it isn't actually an element that we're selecting with this rule. We're actually selecting a fraction of this element, particularly the very end of it. And at the very end, we're going to set the content to be empty, and we are going to clear both, which clears both sides, and we will set the display to table. This is a different display type, and it is a block display type, and it will nullify the effects of the floats that we've used here. This is the typical way to do it. So now I'm going to save those changes. I'm going to refresh my page. I don't expect to see anything different from the last time, but my code is working better, even though I can't see it. And now that I've got those changes added, I'm going to go back and take a look at my commits, and you can see in my boilerplate repository there's been two changes to style, where I have removed a line of nothing, and I've added a bunch of rules. And in my index file, I've added a footer section and an image. So in order to sum these up, I will say adds footer and hero image content plus styles for hero section. And I'm not going to add a description because my commit message itself is descriptive enough. So that's good. I will commit this to the master branch, and that automatically moves me on to the next step. At this point, I'd just like to point out I can go back to any of the steps and check them out. They're here in the timeline and also in the side here. And if I needed to, I could revert to that stage at any point. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue on. So moving to my next step, I'm going to go back into my code,